speaking. When Sophie Cunningham publicly floated cities like New York and Minneapolis as possible destinations, it wasn't just about testing the waters. It was a power move. Fresh off her starring role in Adidas' major campaign and surging media visibility, Cunningham has made one thing clear. Her brand is no longer tethered to a single team. The shift from Phoenix Mercury fan favorite to Indiana Fever starter came with more than on-court responsibility.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
It brought a platform. And now, she's using that platform to reshape the narrative of who holds control in pro sports negotiations. In today's WNBA, talent is only half the equation. Marketability, media presence, and sponsorship clout increasingly define a player's real value. Cunningham's unique blend of athletic utility and rising star power has placed her at the center of a strategic crossroads for the Fever. As contract talks intensify, her role extends beyond a roster spot. It symbolizes how much teams are willing to invest in multidimensional talent. What the Fever decide next won't just define their season. It could reshape how rising stars negotiate power in women's sports. Sophie Cunningham just flipped the script, and not on the court. Fresh off her most high-profile season yet, and in the middle of a heated contract debate with the Indiana Fever, Cunningham is now taking legal action against the very brand that helped boost her star power. Yes, Sophie is reportedly suing Adidas, and the details surrounding the situation are shaking up the conversation around athlete branding, endorsement strategy, and what happens when rising stars feel used instead of respected. Let's break it down. Sophie Cunningham's name has been everywhere. She's not just known for her grit on the floor or her defensive versatility anymore. She's become something else entirely. One of the WNBA's fastest rising stars in terms of both play and platform. And that platform exploded recently thanks to a headline-making Adidas commercial that pushed her into a whole new tier of visibility. This wasn't some background cameo with a dozen athletes. Adidas made her the face of a new campaign, sidelining other bigger names in the process. The message was clear. Sophie wasn't just marketable, she was the moment. It was a strategic play by Adidas, banking on Cunningham's explosive media presence, and it paid off. The ad went viral. Her name hit new audiences. Brands started calling. Her leverage shot through the roof. But now, in a twist nobody saw coming, Sophie is suing Adidas over what she calls a shocking scam. Sources say the lawsuit alleges that Adidas misrepresented aspects of the deal, withheld key deliverables, and potentially failed to pay or fulfill brand partnership obligations promised during the rollout. Cunningham's team reportedly claims she was positioned as a centerpiece without receiving the same contractual security that would have come with that level of exposure. In short, Adidas got all the headlines, and Sophie got burned. That's not just a legal issue. That's a reputation risk for a brand that prides itself on athlete-first marketing. And for Sophie, it's a bold, strategic move. One that says she's not just here to smile for the camera. She's here to own her image. Because let's not forget, this is all happening while her future with the Indiana Fever hangs in the balance. Contract talks are underway. Numbers are floating. Speculation is rampant. And Cunningham, through all of it, has been loud and clear. She wants to be paid what she's worth, or she's gone. She's mentioned other cities. She's dropped hints about her value. And now, in filing suit against Adidas, she's reminding everyone, including her own team, that she knows her power. SC, this isn't about ego. It's about business. Sophie Cunningham understands the industry she's in. She understands that being a great player is only part of the equation. To really maximize your value in today's sports economy, you need brand equity. You need leverage. And she had it. She still has it. That's what makes this such a fascinating power play. On one side, you've got Adidas, the global sports giant, being accused of taking advantage of an athlete's rising fame without backing it with the right terms. On the other side, you have Sophie, an athlete who has risen quickly, not just on court stats, but on cultural momentum. She's done interviews. She's been outspoken. She's built a media identity. She became a figure who could carry headlines on her own. That matters in the modern WNBA, where visibility still fights for every inch. The lawsuit isn't just a personal move. It's a shot across the bow for how endorsement deals are structured in women's sports. Because too often, athletes get offered exposure in place of compensation. Too often, they're told to be grateful for visibility. And when someone finally calls that out and puts it into a legal framework, that's a shift. It also directly affects her contract negotiations with the Fever. Let's be honest, Cunningham's situation was already complicated. She's a glue player with starter-caliber contributions. She doesn't need 30 points a night to make an impact. She's the type of player who makes others better. Her defense, her leadership, her ability to swing momentum without dominating possessions. And now, with her name making waves outside of basketball, her value goes beyond what happens during the 40 minutes of game time. She's asking for a significant contract, some say around $600,000 a year. That's not outlandish, especially considering Indiana has cap space thanks to young stars still on rookie deals. But there's still hesitation because Sophie's value doesn't fit the usual template. She's not the scoring leader. She's not the face of the franchise. But she is a face people recognize, a name that moves, a presence that sells. Speaking. And if Adidas tried to use that without properly compensating her, you better believe she's going to make sure Indiana doesn't do the same. That's why this lawsuit matters beyond the legal back and forth. It's about control. It's about athletes not just playing the game, but owning the narrative. Sophie Cunningham is putting every brand, team, and executive on notice. She knows her value, and she won't let it be exploited. The Fever, meanwhile, are now navigating a tightrope. They know what she brings to the court. They know she's one of the few players who can handle media attention, bridge team chemistry, and actually take pressure off Caitlin Clark. But now, with a pending lawsuit, public contract negotiations, and national attention, keeping her means committing to her entire presence. Because if they don't, she has options. Other cities, other systems, other markets that would build around her in a heartbeat. Her public comments already hinted at that. The mention of New York? Not random. Minneapolis? That's calculated. Those are markets with stronger media pipelines, deeper brand relationships, and front offices that know how to build around dynamic personalities. If Indiana hesitates, they'll get left behind. And let's be clear, if they lose Sophie, it won't be a quiet departure. It'll be loud, it'll be public, and it'll come with receipts. SC Sophie Cunningham. The league as a whole is watching this unfold. Because Cunningham's case is bigger than one team. It's part of a bigger reckoning in women's sports. The moment where athletes stop being grateful for exposure and start demanding real value. Sophie Cunningham is leading that charge. She's not afraid to speak up. She's not waiting for someone else to defend her. She's taking on one of the biggest sports brands in the world and negotiating her next contract at the same time. That's leverage. That's risk. But more than anything, it's power. So what do you think? Did Adidas get too comfortable thinking they could ride the Sophie wave without making it official? Is the Fever risking their future by dragging their feet? Drop your take in the comments. Like this video if you think more athletes should call out shady brand behavior. Share if you're following the drama off the court as closely as what happens on it. And don't forget to subscribe. We're just getting started on this one. The Sophie Cunningham saga isn't cooling down anytime soon. What started as a feel-good rise through the ranks has now exploded into one of the most dramatic and revealing storylines in the WNBA right now. Sophie Cunningham, the underdog turned breakout star, is no longer just playing basketball. She's fighting battles on two fronts, one with a global sportswear giant and another with the franchise she's been carrying in ways people are only just starting to notice. And neither one seems ready for her. When Adidas chose Sophie as the face of their campaign, it was a major moment. It meant something. It meant the industry saw her. That her influence on social, on TV, on the court was finally undeniable. It meant they were ready to bet on someone who didn't fit the usual top-tier mold, but was every bit as impactful. But now, that move looks less like respect and more like exploitation. The alleged breach? It's serious. According to the early reports tied to her lawsuit, Cunningham's team claims Adidas failed to follow through on several core aspects of their agreement. That includes compensation, visibility rights, and even certain deliverables that were promised in writing but never honored. And when you connect that to the timing of her contract standoff with Indiana, it starts to look like a pattern. Because while everyone was praising Sophie for going viral, for landing a major ad campaign, and for becoming one of the most talked about names in the league, the business side behind the scenes wasn't keeping pace. The brands wanted her image, her reach, her clout, but not her price tag. Sound familiar? SC Sophie Cunningham, it should. Because it's exactly what the Indiana Fever are now on the edge of doing. The timing is brutal. Cunningham is already in a sensitive position, negotiating a contract that could reshape the next stage of her career. She's made her demands clear. She wants a deal that reflects her total value. Not just her points per game, not just her defensive stats, but the full picture. The leadership, the media magnetism, the marketing crossover, the ability to draw attention to women's basketball, even when the game's not being played. And still, the Fever haven't locked her in. They're weighing the cap. They're looking at numbers. They're doing the math. But the issue with Sophie isn't mathematical. It's cultural. It's emotional. It's strategic. She's the kind of player who ties a locker room together. The kind of person who defuses tension during post-game pressers. The type who mentors young players while also holding veterans accountable. That doesn't go on a spreadsheet, but it shows when the playoffs come. And let's not pretend like she hasn't put in the work. Sophie's been grinding since her Mercury days, bringing that tenacity to every team she joins. She's not flashy for the sake of it. She doesn't chase headlines to distract from her play. She's consistent, durable, relentless. And now, she's finally seeing her star rise. And she's demanding that everyone around her rise to the occasion too. That's where Adidas failed. And that's where the Fever could, too, if they don't move quickly. The lawsuit is a red flag for every major sports brand. If an athlete like Sophie, media-ready, culturally aware, and building her own platform, can be brought in as the face of a campaign without proper fulfillment of the deal, what does that say about how these brands view WNBA players in general? Is it just a marketing checkbox? Is it about optics rather than true investment? Sophie's not just blowing the whistle. She's forcing the entire system to look in the mirror. This is the reality of modern sports. Branding isn't a side hustle anymore. It's a full-blown career component. Athletes are entrepreneurs now. They're content creators. They're public figures. And when they walk into endorsement deals, they don't just bring talent. They bring value. Real, measurable, monetizable value. Sophie knew that. Adidas didn't act like they did. And now she's making it a legal issue. Good. Because for too long, female athletes have been told to be grateful for scraps. At least you got the ad. At least your face was on the billboard. At least you got invited to the table. But Cunningham isn't sitting quietly at the table. She's flipping it over and asking why the check never came. SC Sophie Cunningham speaking. And that same energy? It's directed at Indiana too. Because Sophie Cunningham is not waiting for a front office to finally realize what she brings to the table. She's telling them now. She's laying it all out. And if they hesitate too long, she's already got her sights on other markets. Markets that know what to do with a player who can anchor a defense and a marketing campaign in the same week. Think about it. How many players in the league right now are truly multidimensional? Not just versatile on the court, but resonant off of it. The kind of player who generates earned media without needing to win Player of the Week. That's Sophie. And whether the Fever want to admit it or not, replacing her wouldn't just be hard. It'd be impossible. And this is where it all intersects. The brand that didn't pay and the team that might not either. If Sophie's Adidas lawsuit succeeds, it won't just be about damages. It will be a warning shot to every brand that wants to use WNBA players for social points without putting money behind it. And if Indiana plays this wrong, they'll join the list of organizations that underestimated how quickly athletes in this league are learning to own their own power. SC Sophie Cunningham. The WNBA has evolved. It's not the league of a decade ago. The stars now? They're smart, strategic, and unapologetically self-aware. And when one of them decides she's not waiting to be appreciated anymore, it changes everything. So here we are, a franchise on the edge of a championship window, a player at the height of her cultural relevance, a brand under fire, and a growing audience that's watching it all unfold in real time. Sophie Cunningham is no longer asking for a seat at the table. She's asking for her worth. And if the answer isn't what she wants to hear, she's walking with headlines, fan support, legal receipts, and a blueprint for how the next player can do the same. She's not backing down. Not to Adidas. Not to Indiana. Not to anyone. She's already shown she can handle the spotlight. Now she's showing she knows how to own it. SC Sophie Cunningham. Sophie Cunningham suing Adidas isn't just a messy PR moment. It's a cultural reckoning. It's the exact moment where the lines between athlete, brand, and businesswoman got blurred, and Cunningham stood in the middle of it and said, "You don't get to profit off me without paying me what I'm worth." And let's be clear, this isn't some vague, bad blood situation or off-the-record dispute. This is legal. This is strategic. This is public. Adidas didn't just pick Sophie out of nowhere for their campaign. They made a conscious business decision to center a rising WNBA figure, a calculated pivot from their usual faces. They saw the data. They saw her social traction. They saw her interviews blowing up. They saw that she wasn't just playing basketball. She was driving conversation. And they knew what that was worth. But what they allegedly didn't do, back that up with the contract she deserved. And when that happens, when a major global brand benefits off a woman's momentum and visibility without honoring the value she brought, that's not just a bad look. That's exploitation. Cunningham suing Adidas is about holding that mirror up to the sports marketing machine and asking a brutal question. Is the WNBA athlete good enough to sell your product, but not good enough to be paid like it? Because that's the pattern we've seen for years. Use the image. Post a clip. Celebrate women in sports during Women's History Month. Drop the merch. Push the empowerment narrative. But when the cameras go off and it's time to sign checks, suddenly the energy shifts. Suddenly it's about budgets and contract clauses, and you're not quite at that level yet. Well, Sophie says otherwise. She's not just calling out Adidas. She's setting a standard. One that other athletes will follow. One that says being marketable is a currency, and it deserves a payout. And this lawsuit doesn't exist in a vacuum. It sits right alongside the pressure cooker of her contract standoff with the Indiana Fever. These two battles, legal and professional, are playing out in parallel, and they're connected by the same thread, respect. Because the truth is, Sophie's leverage has never been higher. Her Adidas commercial was viral for a reason. Her name is trending. Her presence does matter. Fans aren't just watching her, they're talking about her. She's part of the conversation, even when she's not on the court. And that makes her rare in this league. Because as much as the WNBA is growing, there still aren't that many players who can pull that kind of dual impact, game and brand, in real time. SC Indiana knows this. The Fever have a roster packed with young promise and media heat. Caitlin Clark's presence alone has changed the energy around the franchise. But Sophie Cunningham is the glue that keeps it from becoming chaos. She's the vocal vet, the adaptable piece, the teammate who doesn't shy away from tough moments, whether it's guarding multiple positions or handling post-game press with a room full of cameras and expectations. That's not just valuable. It's irreplaceable. But if the Fever are paying attention to what's happening with Adidas, they better understand this too. Sophie won't sit back and get underpaid while everyone else profits off the moment she helped build. That moment? It's hers. She earned it. The Adidas lawsuit sends a message not just to brands, but to teams. You can't keep asking women to be the face of your product, your program, your platform, then hesitate when it's time to give them what they're due. And you know what's most powerful about all of this? Sophie isn't flinching. She's not hiding behind lawyers or posting cryptic tweets. She's being direct. She said what she said on her podcast. She dropped the lawsuit. She's negotiating out in the open. She's taking every bit of leverage she's earned and using it exactly how she should. Because if she doesn't, nothing changes. If she lets Adidas slide, other brand will follow. If she lets Indiana hesitate, Other teams will start thinking this kind of slow play is normal. And she's not going to let that happen. Not for herself, and not for the next player watching this unfold in real time. The league is watching. Sponsors are watching. Teammates are watching. And every move Sophie makes right now is shaping what's next. Not just for her, but for how future contracts and deals will be handled for WNBA players with growing platforms. So what's Indiana really deciding here? It's not just about whether they want to give one player a few $100,000 more. It's whether they're willing to evolve with where the sport is clearly going. They've got a team with a bright future, national spotlight, and record-breaking attention. But that spotlight has to be shared responsibly. If Sophie helped build it, she deserves a share of the light and the check. If they choose to undervalue her now, they're sending a message. One that'll echo across locker rooms and headlines. We see your worth, but not in the way that counts. And the fallout won't be quiet. Sophie Cunningham is not the kind of player who fades into the background. If she walks, it'll be with clarity and a microphone. She'll go to a city that wants her voice. A franchise that understands what she brings. A brand that sees her not just as a spokesperson, but a partner. And they'll win big because of it. Meanwhile, Adidas? They're dealing with the legal mess they created. What could have been a celebrated partnership is now a PR disaster. Because they underestimated the one thing that makes an athlete like Sophie so dangerous in the best way. She knows exactly what she's worth. So let's talk about it. Did Adidas get caught trying to cut corners with a player they thought wouldn't fight back? Is the Fever front office risking a cultural and chemistry collapse by waiting too long? Or is this just the beginning of something bigger for Sophie? A future where she's not just a player or a pitchwoman, but a power broker? Drop your take in the comments. Like this if you've been watching this story with your jaw on the floor. Share it with someone who still thinks WNBA players don't have leverage. And make sure you subscribe. We'll be tracking every legal filing, every contract rumor, and every move Sophie makes from here on out. Because one thing is for sure, she's not just part of the game anymore. She is the game.